"We're ashamed to call you family," my sister Amanda declared, her voice carrying across our parents' perfectly manicured backyard. 30 pairs of eyes turned to witness my humiliation, champagne glasses frozen halfway to smirking lips. I stood there in my simple black dress, the nicest thing I owned, clutching a small gift bag that suddenly felt impossibly heavy. My mother sipped her wine, hiding a smile behind her crystal glass. Dad studied his shoes, avoiding eye contact as always. My brother Michael snickered from his place beside Amanda, his Rolex catching the evening light. "I mean, look at you," Amanda continued, gesturing at my outfit with her perfectly manicured hand. "We're celebrating Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary, and you show up looking like you just came from a shift at some cheap office." I hadn't. I come straight from my corner office on the 50th floor of the city's most prestigious building. But they didn't know that. They didn't know anything about me anymore. The invitation said formal attire. She pressed on, smoothing her own designer dress. "This is embarrassing." I looked down at my dress, simple, elegant, and worth more than her monthly salary, though she'd never recognized the subtle designer touches. Not that it mattered. In their eyes, I was still the family failure, the one who'd walked away from the family business 5 years ago to waste time building something of my own. "I'm sorry my presence offends you," I said quietly, placing the gift bag on a nearby table. "I'll leave." "Yes, please do," Amanda smirked. "We have important guests here. We can't have them thinking we associate with your kind." Important guests? I almost laughed. The local bank manager, a few mid-level executives, small-time real estate agents, all part of their carefully curated image of success. None of them knew that the family business was drowning in debt, that their perfect facade was built on loans and lies. But I knew everything. "Goodbye, Amanda," I said, turning to leave. "Mom, Dad, congratulations on 35 years. "Emily, wait," Dad called half-heartedly, but Mom's sharp look silenced him, same as always. I walked to my car, a modest sedan they'd mocked countless times, not knowing it was just for show. As I pulled away, my phone buzzed. A message from James, my CFO. "It's done. The papers are signed. Congratulations, Chairman." I smiled, thinking of the folder sitting on my desk at the office. Inside was proof that I now owned 51% of Riverside Corporate, the company that held the mortgage on my parents' house, the loans for Amanda's designer wardrobe, and the credit lines keeping my brother's successful real estate ventures afloat. They'd spent years building their lives on borrowed money and empty prestige. Tomorrow they'd learn who really held the strings. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus, Amanda's boss, and my old friend from business school. "Just got the memo about the ownership change. When do you want to tell her?" "Schedule a board meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow," I typed back. "Make sure everyone's there." I could picture it already. Amanda strutting into that meeting, ready to present her latest mediocre proposals to the board. She'd been bragging about her rising star status at family gatherings for months, never realizing her rapid promotions were my way of positioning her exactly where I needed her. The next message was from my real estate agent. "The papers for the Highland Heights purchase are ready. The sellers accepted your offer." Highland Heights, the exclusive gated community my parents had always dreamed of living in, but could never quite afford. By tomorrow night, I'd own the largest mansion there. 5 years ago, I'd walked away from the family business, a struggling chain of mid-range clothing stores, after discovering Dad had been cooking the books to maintain their lifestyle. They called me a traitor, a failure, told me I'd never survive without them. They didn't know I'd walked straight into a junior partnership at a venture capital firm. Didn't know I'd turned that into my own investment company. Didn't know that while they were playing at success, I was building an empire. My phone lit up again. Amanda calling, probably ready to twist the knife a bit more. I let it go to voicemail and focused on driving to my temporary apartment. Tomorrow, I'd move into my new mansion. But tonight, this modest 2-bedroom suited my purposes perfectly. The voicemail came through. "Emily, it's Amanda. Look, maybe I was a bit harsh, but you have to understand how it looks. We have a reputation to maintain. If you just tried harder, made better choices. Anyway, I need to discuss something with you. Call me back." I played the message twice, savoring the condescension in her voice. She needed something, probably money, though she'd never admit it directly. That's how it always worked with them. They'd insult me, then come asking for family support when their credit card's maxed out. Not anymore. I poured myself a glass of wine, a bottle worth more than Amanda's car, and settled onto my balcony. The city lights sparkled below, and somewhere out there, my family was probably still laughing about my humiliation, still playing their roles in their carefully constructed fantasy of success. Let them laugh. By this time tomorrow, everything would change. Morning came bright and clear. I dressed carefully in a custom-made suit that cost more than my parents' mortgage payment. My driver, yes, I had one, though my family had never seen him, held the door of my real car, a Mercedes S-Class that spent most of its time in a private garage. "The office, Ms. Harrison?" he asked. "Yes, Thomas, and make sure we arrive before 8:30. I want to be settled before the show begins." The drive was smooth and quick. My private elevator opened directly into my corner office suite, where my assistant Claire was already waiting with my morning coffee and a stack of documents. "Everything's ready," she reported crisply. "The board members have all confirmed attendance. Legal has the papers prepared." And she smiled slightly. "Amanda just called to confirm she'll be presenting her proposal first." Perfect. I settled behind my desk, hand-carved mahogany, another detail my status-obsessed family would have appreciated if they'd ever seen it. "Has the Highland Heights closing been scheduled?" 3 p.m. today. The movers are already at your apartment, ready to begin as soon as you give the word. I nodded, scanning the morning reports. My company had grown far beyond what even I had imagined. While my family played at success with mortgaged homes and leased luxury cars, I'd built something real, something lasting. At 8:55, Claire's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Harrison, the board members are arriving, and your sister just entered the building." "Thank you, Claire. Give me 2 minutes, then show them in." I stood moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. 5 years of careful planning, of quiet acquisition, of watching and waiting while they mocked and belittled me. Now it would end. The boardroom doors opened. I heard the murmur of voices, the scraping of chairs. Amanda's voice, loud and confident, rising above the rest as she prepared to present her proposal. I waited until Claire gave me the signal, then turned and walked through the connecting door into the boardroom. The conversation died instantly. Amanda, halfway through arranging her presentation materials, froze mid-motion. Her face, already perfectly made up for her big moment, went pale. "Emily," she whispered. "What? What are you doing here?" Marcus, seated at the head of the table, stood. "Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our chairman and majority shareholder, Ms. Emily Harrison." The silence was absolute. Amanda's papers slipped from her nerveless fingers, scattering across the polished table. "Please sit down, Amanda," I said quietly, taking my place at the head of the table. "We have a lot to discuss." The next hour was a blur of presentations and reports, but I barely heard them. I was watching Amanda, seeing the slow realization dawn in her eyes as she finally understood just who had been pulling the strings of her career. When the meeting ended, she remained in her seat, staring at me with a mixture of shock and growing horror. "Your office," I said once we were alone. "The view is quite nice, isn't it?" She nodded numbly. "It was my first office here," I continued, "back when I was just starting out. I arranged your transfer to this division personally, approved every promotion, guided your career path exactly where I needed it to be." "Why?" she whispered. "Because I wanted you to understand something." I leaned forward. "Success isn't about appearances, Amanda. It's not about designer labels or country club memberships or what car you drive. It's about building something real." "The party," she said suddenly. "Last night, you knew? All this time you've been your boss?" "Yes, and now so much more." I slid a folder across the table to her. "These are the loan documents for the family business, the mortgage on Mom and Dad's house, your car lease, Michael's investment properties, everything." Her hands trembled as she opened the folder. "My company now holds all of it," I said softly. "Every loan, every credit line, every piece of paper holding up your perfect lives." "You can't," she started, but her voice failed. "Can't what?" "Call in the loans? Demand immediate payment? Review the books of the family business?" I smiled. "Actually, I can, but I won't. Not yet." She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "First, we're going to have a family meeting. Tonight, At my new house in Highland Heights. Yes, that Highland Heights. 7 p.m. sharp. Don't be late. She stood on shaky legs, gathering her scattered papers. Oh, and Amanda, I called as she reached the door. Dress appropriately. We wouldn't want to embarrass the family. The Highland Heights mansion was everything I'd imagined and more. 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a sweeping staircase that would have made my mother weep with envy. As I stood in the grand foyer at 6:55 p.m., watching the security feeds on my tablet, I saw them arrive. First came Amanda, 30 minutes early, pacing at the gate in another designer dress. Then Michael, his leased BMW pulling up exactly at 7. Finally, my parents, Dad driving slowly in his aging Mercedes, Mom fidgeting with her pearls in the passenger seat. Let them in, I instructed the security guard through the intercom. Direct them to the main parlor. I watched through the cameras as they entered, their faces a mix of awe and confusion as they took in the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the priceless art on the walls. Mom reached out to touch a sculpture in the hallway, then pulled her hand back quickly when she noticed the security camera tracking her movement. Ms. Harrison. Claire's voice came through my earpiece. They're all in the parlor. Perfect. Give me 2 minutes. I checked my reflection one last time. The custom suit was impeccable. The jewelry subtle but unmistakably expensive. Every detail was designed to shatter their perception of their poor failure of a daughter. The parlor doors opened silently. They were all standing, looking uncomfortably around the room that cost more than their combined annual incomes. Welcome to my home, I said quietly. They spun around. Mom's hand flew to her throat, clutching her pearls. Dad's face went pale. Michael took an involuntary step back. Please sit down, I gestured to the arranged seating. We have a lot to discuss. Emily, Mom found her voice first. What is this? How are you? In Highland Heights. I finished for her. In the largest mansion in the community you've envied for 20 years. Simple. I bought it. Cash offer. Close this afternoon. That's impossible, Michael blurted. This house was listed at $12 million. 11.8, I corrected. A fair price, considering the market. But your dad started. Poor? A failure? The family embarrassment? I smiled, taking my seat in a high back chair that felt very much like a throne. No, that was just the story you chose to believe. The lie that made you comfortable. I opened my tablet, projecting images onto the wall-mounted screen. Financial statements, property deeds, corporate documents. While you were all playing at success, I continued. I was building something real, something lasting. The venture capital firm I joined after leaving the family business. I turned my junior partnership into my own investment company within 2 years. The documents scrolled past, showing revenue figures that made Michael's eyes bulge. That company grew, acquired others, including most recently, Riverside Corporate. I paused, letting that sink in. You know Riverside, don't you, Dad? They hold all your loans, the mortgage on your house, the credit lines for the family business. Dad's face went from pale to ashen. You bar debt. All of it. Every loan, every credit card, every lease. I turned to Michael. Those investment properties you've been bragging about, I own those mortgages too. One missed payment and it all comes crashing down. You wouldn't. Mom whispered. We're family? Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Last night, you were ashamed to call me family. What changed? The house? The money? The power to destroy everything you've built? Amanda, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. The company? My job. Your rapid rise to senior management? I nodded. All orchestrated by me. Every promotion, every opportunity, carefully planned to position you exactly where I needed you to be. Why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why go through all this? Because you needed to learn. I stood walking to the window that overlooked the manicured gardens. All of you needed to understand what real success looks like. Not the fake version you've been living. The mortgaged homes, the leased cars, the designer clothes bought on credit. I turned back to face them. You've been living a lie, and I've watched you sacrifice everything that should matter for the sake of appearances. That's not true, Mom protested weakly. No. I picked up a folder from the side table. Shall we discuss the creative accounting in the family business books, the inflated sales figures, the hidden debts? How close you are to complete collapse. Dad stood up abruptly. Now wait just a minute. Sit down, I said quietly, but with enough authority that he sank back into his seat. I'm not finished. I watched them squirm, these people who had made me feel small for so long. Now they were the small ones, their carefully constructed facade crumbling around them. Tomorrow morning, I continued, auditors will arrive at the family business. They'll go through everything, every account, every transaction, every piece of paper. If they find what I suspect they'll find, I let the threat hang in the air. What do you want? Michael asked, his voice hoarse. Money? Control of the business. I laughed again. I have more money than all of you combined could ever dream of. And your struggling chain of retail stores. Please, I could buy 100 businesses like that without blinking. Then what? Amanda demanded. Why are you doing this? I sat back down, folding my hands in my lap. Because it's time for things to change. Time for this family to remember what actually matters. And if it takes the threat of financial ruin to make that happen, so be it. The silence that followed was deafening. Through the window, I could see the sun setting over the manicured gardens of Highland Heights, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm went off, then fell silent. Tomorrow, I said finally, you have a choice to make. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way means admitting your mistakes, dropping the pretense, and working to rebuild this family into something real. The hard way, I smiled thinly. Well, let's just say the hard way ends with moving trucks and bankruptcy notices. You'd really do that to us? Mom asked, her voice trembling. You did this to yourselves, I corrected. I'm just providing the wake-up call. I stood smoothing my suit. You have until noon tomorrow to decide. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some unpacking to do. Claire will show you out. As if on cue, my assistant appeared at the door. One by one, they filed out, looking shell-shocked and small. Only Amanda lingered, turning back at the last moment. The dress, she said suddenly. Last night at the party. How much did it really cost? More than your car, I replied simply. Good night, Amanda. The doors closed behind them, and I was alone in my new home. Through the security feeds, I watched them leave, no longer the proud, arrogant family from last night, but confused, frightened people whose world had just been turned upside down. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. How did it go? Phase 1 complete. I typed back. We'll see what tomorrow brings. I walked through my new home, each room a testament to the success they had never believed I could achieve. Tomorrow would determine whether this became a story of redemption or revenge. The choice, as always, was theirs to make. But for now, in the growing darkness of my Highland Heights mansion, I allowed myself a small smile. The family failure had finally come home, and home would never be the same again. Morning brought a flurry of texts and missed calls. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the financial reports spread across my home office desk. The auditor's preliminary findings from the family business were exactly as I'd expected: creative accounting, hidden debts, and enough financial irregularities to bury my father in legal trouble for years. At 11:30 a.m., Claire's voice came through the intercom. They're here. All of them. I checked the security feed. They looked different today, subdued, the designer labels and flashy accessories notably absent. Even Amanda had traded her usual stilettos for modest flats. Send them to the garden terrace, I instructed. I'll be there in 5 minutes. The garden terrace was my favorite part of the new house, with its sweeping views of the city and meticulously landscaped grounds. I'd had breakfast served there, fresh pastries, fruit, coffee in fine china cups. A power move, reminding them whose house they were in. They stood awkwardly when I entered, like chastened schoolchildren before the principal. Sit, I said, taking my place at the head of the table. Coffee. Mom reached for a cup with trembling hands. Dad stared at the table. Michael kept glancing at his phone until I fixed him with a stern look. It's noon and 15 minutes, I began. Have you made your decision? Amanda spoke first, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. We talked all night. About everything. About what you said. And... Dad cleared his throat. The auditors are at the store. They're finding things. Things that could put you in prison. I finished for him. Yes, I know. How long? Mom asked suddenly. How long have you known about the books? Since the day I left. I sipped my coffee calmly. It's why I left. I saw where it was heading, and I wanted no part of it. But you didn't report it, Michael said. Why? Because despite everything, your family, I gave you 5 years to fix it yourselves, to turn things around. Instead, you doubled down on the lies, living beyond your means, pretending to be something you're not. We can't pay everything back, Dad admitted quietly, even if we sold everything. I know, I set my cup down. That's not what this is about. Then what do you want? Amanda asked. I stood walking to the terrace railing. The city sprawled below, a maze of buildings and streets where somewhere, my younger self had once walked away from everything she knew, determined to build something real. I want my family back, I said finally. Not the fake version that cares more about appearances than reality. Not the people who would humiliate their own daughter for not fitting their artificial image. I want something real. How? Mom's voice cracked. How do we even start? I turned back to them. First, the family business goes into voluntary restructuring. I'll handle the debt, but you'll step down from management, Dad. Professional executives will take over. He nodded, shoulders slumping in relief. Second, the pretense ends. No more leased luxury cars. No more designer clothes bought on credit. You'll live within actual means, not borrowed ones. But our reputation, Mom started. Will survive, I cut her off. Real respect comes from integrity, not empty shows of wealth. And our jobs? Michael asked. The house? You'll keep the house for now, but the investment properties go on the market. As for jobs, I smiled slightly. I might have some positions available, entry-level positions, where you can learn to build something legitimate. You'd do that? Amanda asked. After everything family is family, I said simply, even when they disappoint you, even when they hurt you. But this is your last chance. Your only chance. I pulled out a folder containing 5 documents. These are your choices. Sign, and we start fresh, with my rules, my guidance, and a chance to rebuild. Don't sign, and by sunset, the auditor's findings go to the SEC. One by one they signed. Even Amanda, her usual confidence replaced by something that looked almost like respect. One more thing, I added as they finished signing. Those weekly family dinners you never invited me to. They'll happen here now. Every Sunday. No designer labels, no showing off. Just family. Here. Mom looked around the terrace. In Highland Heights. Unless you prefer the country club you can no longer afford. She flushed, shaking her head. Good. I gathered the signed papers. The first dinner is this Sunday. Don't be late. And Amanda? Yes. Wear something appropriate. We wouldn't want to embarrass the family. The irony wasn't lost on her. For the first time, I saw a genuine smile crack through her perfect facade. As they left, each looking both relieved and shell-shocked, I watched them through the security feeds again. They walked differently now, the artificial confidence replaced by something more genuine, more human. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Board meeting in an hour. Still want to announce the restructuring? Yes, I replied. And Marcus, give Amanda's department the Wilson account. Let's see what she can do when she actually has to earn her success. I looked out over my garden, thinking about Sunday dinner. It wouldn't be perfect. Years of habits and pretense don't vanish overnight. But it would be real. And real was all I'd ever wanted. Claire appeared at the terrace door. Your car is ready, Ms. Harrison. The board is waiting. I nodded, gathering my things. Time to go build something else, something more than just wealth and power. Time to build a real family. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn Sunday evening, I stood in my Highland Heights kitchen, watching my family through the window. They were gathered on the terrace, not posing, not performing, just being. Dad, wearing a simple sweater instead of his formerly mandatory designer suits, was teaching Michael's kids how to play chess at the outdoor table. His shoulders no longer carried the weight of hidden debts and mounting lies. The family business, under professional management, was finally turning a genuine profit. Mom sat nearby, her once perfect makeup softened, her designer labels replaced by comfortable clothing. She was laughing at something Amanda had said. A real laugh, not the practiced social titter she perfected over years of pretending. Amanda herself had changed the most. After 6 months of actually working for her success at the company, she earned a legitimate promotion. The artificial polish had faded, replaced by something more authentic. She'd even started mentoring junior staff, showing them that success comes from effort, not appearance. Michael, who had sold his investment properties and started over as a junior analyst in my company's real estate division, was actually learning the business properly. His wife said he smiled more now, spent more time with their children instead of chasing empty status symbols. More wine? Claire appeared at my elbow with a bottle. Yes, thank you. I watched her fill the glasses on the serving tray. Will you be joining us tonight? She smiled. After 6 months of Sunday dinners, she'd become an unofficial part of the family. Wouldn't miss it. I carried the tray outside, feeling the cool evening air. The city lights were just beginning to twinkle in the distance. Emily, Mom called out, her voice warm and genuine. Come sit. Amanda was just telling us about her new project. I settled into a chair, passing out the wine glasses. The Wilson account. How's it going? Honestly, it's challenging. Amanda's admission came easily now, without the defensive pride she'd once hidden behind. But I'm learning so much. Actually earning it, you know. Dad looked up from the chess game. Speaking of earning things, the auditor's final report came in. The business showed its first legitimate profit in 5 years. I smiled. Impressive what happens when you focus on real success instead of appearances. We needed that wake-up call, Michael said quietly, watching his children play. All of us. Mom reached over and squeezed my hand. We needed you to show us what really matters. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. In the distance, a few early stars were appearing. I have an announcement, I said, setting down my wine glass. The Highland Heights house next door is for sale. They looked at me waiting. I bought it this morning. It's for all of you, a real family home. Not mortgage, not leverage. Just a place where we can all be together. No more pretending, no more keeping up appearances. For a moment, there was silence. Then Mom started crying, not her old theatrical tears, but quiet ones of genuine emotion. You didn't have to, Dad began, but I cut him off. I wanted to, because I gestured around at all of them, this is real. This is what I wanted all along. A family that doesn't need designer labels or country club memberships to feel worthy. Amanda raised her glass. To real success. To family, Michael added. To second chances, Dad said softly. We clinked glasses as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus about tomorrow's board meeting. But for once, it could wait. Here in this moment, watching my reformed family enjoy a simple evening together, I had everything I'd ever wanted. Not the revenge I'd once planned, but something better, redemption. So Mom said, a genuine smile playing on her lips, who's helping me cook Sunday dinner next week. And just like that, we were home. Really, truly home.